This is
Obscurigami.
I am
Thomas. And I am
Ben.
And you're listening to Obscurigami, the podcast about
obscure things.
Yeah, the Journal of Obscurity.
I like that, journal.
Journal of Obscurity, yeah.
That's a good...
I feel like journal has a certain kind of like casual connotation to it. Mm-hmm. It's not too formal. Whenever I'm tagging the podcast on the various services we upload it to, mm-hmm. I'm always like hesitant to put like educational as a tag.
For obvious reasons.
Even though like that's kind of like it's very hard to categorize this podcast because I don't really just want to say, oh, it's educational, because I don't recommend
how do we categorize it then?
I categorize it as both education and humor, and I hope that kind of like threads.
What if the site that you're using only allows one choice? Which way do you go?
That hasn't been the case yet. So far,
Right.
I can just like
tag
it with multiple things. And,
but if it came down to the wire.
But if it came down to it, I think I would go with educational, because I think it ultimately, like, we are talking about information.
Right.
And trying to like tell people about things, mm-hmm. however poor of a job we may be doing at it. Mm-hmm. So I think that's probably the best descriptor of the show. It's
just not complete.
Yeah. And I don't want to, I kind of, don't want to overpromise. Keep expectations low. Don't
Definitely.
Expect to be educated.
Low expectations is kind of the founding principle of Obscurigami.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's been the principle that's kept us going.
Yeah.
For all these months.
It's probably been like 6 months now. What time?
Has
when
it really?
Did we start? We started before November last year.
Know.
So, yeah, at least half a year at this point. Wow. What do we got to show for it?
Pretty soon it'll be time for our anniversary. There'll be like cake and ice cream. It'll be rad.
We'll have to throw a 1 year pizza party or something. Just not pizza party.
Should invite our fans, our listeners. Should have a contest. Well, today's topic, like all of our topics, could potentially not be considered obscure, depending on where you're from in the world. If you're from the good city of London, you may have heard of the ravens in the Tower of London. The ravens, there's 6 of them that live there, and they have been kept there allegedly since the 1600s. And there's a superstition that if the ravens ever leave the Tower of London, then the Kingdom of England will fall.
Interesting.
So naturally, a lot of effort is put into maintaining their population.
Yeah. How do they keep it at 6?
They have a captive breeding program. So I guess they rotate them out, and they don't allow them to mate. Their wings are clipped, so they can't.
They can't leave.
They can't just fly about and
it's not a desirable enough location to live that other ravens.
There's not a lot of ravens
around
naturally in the area of London anymore. There were in the 1500s and 1600s, but since that time the population has dwindled considerably. Although in 2004 they found the first wild nesting of ravens in the area, but other than that there've been no reports.
Yeah.
So these 6 ravens are allegedly it was King Charles II, either him or his royal astronomer that started the tradition, and depending on who's telling the legend, the opposite person, the person who didn't start it, was really annoyed about it, because the royal astronomer was using the Tower of London to stargaze, and the birds were pooping on the lens and creating havoc. In that version of the story, the astronomer's the one who wanted to kick them out, and the king was the one who wanted them.
Okay, so in either version of the story, they just were living there on their own to begin with, like they weren't put there initially.
Right.
Okay.
In that version of the story.
Right.
The other legend is that they came there because that's where the executions used to be performed, And their ravens are carrion eaters.
Right.
So they would be drawn by the stench of death and the corpses lying around. And then still another theory says that they were brought there to dramatize the executions, to have like a dark black bird there for theatricality.
Yeah.
But there's
how French.
But there's still more theories that say that the ravens didn't actually show up until the 1800s, that they were actually like a Victorian idea that was created, sort of like retroactively
applied to history. Interesting.
So it's very unclear how they actually got there. The most historians believe that it was in the 1800s that it started becoming a tradition. And of course the numbers fluctuated over the years. They weren't always 6 of them, but 6 has been the traditional number.
What's the lowest it ever fell? Do you know?
During World War II, the tower was closed to the public due to the Blitz. And at the end of the war, there was only 1 surviving raven.
Oh, wow. And
Winston Churchill stepped in, like the fearless leader that he was, and insisted that the population be brought up to normal. And since then, it's been pretty well maintained. There's always been 6 ever since then. They started their captive breeding program in 1987. So prior to that, they were all wild caught ravens.
Yeah.
The ravens were sort of institutionalized and given like military IDs. So they're treated as if they're members of the military in some form or fashion.
Yeah.
Not exactly clear on how that works specifically, but they have their identification and they're there. They're part of the guard of the Tower of London.
I'm
of
just
the crown
imagining
jewels.
Ravens with little like lanyards.
Yeah, see, none of the photographs show them wearing their ID.
Yeah.
So I don't know how they carry it. Maybe it's just like stored in their living quarters.
Yeah. I wonder, well, they're probably tagged somehow.
And I mean, there's a Raven Master who's one of the Beefeater guards.
He can probably tell them
specifically designated just for taking care of the ravens.
Yeah. That would be quite the job to have.
It's kind of like a falconer.
Yeah.
But way more awesome because you're specifically focused on, you're specialized in one type of bird. And not only that, but you're specialized in like birds that are like symbolic of a nation in a way.
I always wonder with occupations like that, if the person doing it like set out to do that or just casually like fell into like they were just going through the paper one morning and it's like falconer needed for military work must be willing to work with ravens, and then you have to do background checks and stuff.
If I was advertising that job, I would definitely advertise it as Raven Master because that term is just
but then in the Google searches, you know, how many Raven Masters really are there in the world? Right. So how many people are searching for Raven Master job, Tower of London?
That's true. But, you know, I feel like your pool might be smaller if you used Raven Master.
Right.
Raisin Master. If you used
Raven Master must be proficient in Photoshop and Microsoft Excel, 5 years experience minimum, needs a bachelor's degree in AV and
aviary studies.
I wonder what kind of bachelor's degrees you can get that have to do with birds.
We're about to find out.
Go on or continue, and I will.
The current Raven Master is kind of an interesting fellow, and there will be an interview with him linked to in the show notes. But if you want to know a little bit more about him, it is a job that requires military experience. You have to have some, in order to be part of the Beefeaters, you have to have military experience. I think 22 years. So,
avian biology major.
There we go.
Is what you would be.
Avian biology, or is there like a branch of zoology that applies?
Avian biology is just the first thing that came up.
There we have it.
So, I imagine there's probably other bird-related degrees you can get, but that seems to be the main one. So yeah, your path to this job would probably be more like you want to be a beefeater, and then you just also happen to be into ravens.
Right.
And then the current raven master dies, and I'm assuming there's some sort of like ceremony, and then
Presumably.
they take the birds into a room. This is what I'm assuming happens. They take the birds down into a room and they put them all there, and they bring in like 10 potential candidates, and then like they line up the birds, and then they just let the birds like fly around, and they fly whichever one they fly to, that's the next raven master.
I get the impression that before Churchill kind of reinvigorated things, that it was not very seriously maintained.
Right. Yeah.
That it was just kind of like a little bonus extra to like get people to come to the Tower of London and take the tour.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And then there was also ravens. But now it's very seriously maintained.
It's
and
much more venerated.
Their diet is very regulated.
Yeah.
And
That's funny that like it's basically almost a superstition, but it's got more intense over time.
yeah.
Like it's not just like a casual thing anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting that it has a reputation for being so old, but we can't even be sure if it existed for 200 years prior to when we definitely know it existed.
Yeah.
It's a bit of an oddity.
That is weird. That's a good one.
I wish I could say definitively
How
more about the origins of it,
Yeah.
but there's really not.
We just have a few legends and theories.
Yeah.
And why is it so vague? Are the accounts not trusted, or were they just oral for quite some time and the written account?
There was naturally ravens in the tower.
Right, for a while.
For a long time.
Yeah.
So nobody really knows at what point it became like an institutionalized tradition.
Yeah.
Like there's not documentation of, at this point we're going to start a tradition of.
Right.
It just became at some point.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the line. And most likely during the Victorian era.
Yeah.
So around the 1880s. That's what most people seem to gravitate towards.
It's so funny. I just wonder like what the initial.
Wouldn't you love to be in that marketing meeting?
Right, or
To
just
be
that, like what were the initial discussions, or who was there making that decision initially? Who was like, we've noticed, I want to bring it to the attention of the board that the raven population in the tower has been
Dwindling.
in a steep decline. We are concerned about the future of our great nation, or even just, that are...
or even just we need to like make up a story and circulate it.
People are getting much less spooked by... There seems to be a rise in crime because executions are less feared because of the rate, but there's less ravens. So we got to keep the image up.
Yeah, I'm not sure at what point they stopped performing executions.
The executions were probably stopped before the ravens were.
See if I can dig up that information real quick.
Forced to stay around. Those poor birds all cooped up there, clipped wings.
They are allowed to kind of
flutter
around the grounds. They just can't really fly distances because their wings are clipped. And I don't think these ravens are the best treated ravens in the world, so I don't think they have much motivation to leave.
They're probably very happy as far as
they have a diet
ravens
of
go.
Meat and eggs and all sorts of healthy things. They get to meet, dignitaries like Vladimir Putin and other passing through people. I'm sure some people feed them. Tourists.
Do you know their names? I'm assuming they have names if they have ID cards.
Yeah, that's in the show notes. I'll pull it up real quick. There was a raven named Charles who was killed by a dog.
Oh.
He was not the happiest of ravens.
It reminds me of that story or joke that people tell about the ham, like the Christmas ham or the Thanksgiving ham or something, where like the mother cuts the ends off of the ham and puts it in the plate, and one of her children asks, why do you why do you cut the ends off of the ham? And she's like, well, my mother always did it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go and they ask the grandmother, why do you cut the ends off of the ham? And she said, well, my mother always did it. And they go to the great grandmother and they ask her, why did you cut the ends off the ham? And she said, well, my pan was too small. And it's just kind of this like, how do these things start? Well, there's ravens there. Well, why are the ravens there? Well, for whatever reason. We don't even know. We don't even know what reason, but we must have these ravens.
So there are several ravens in the batch. There's more than 6.
They kind of
currently
they give them shifts.
And,
well,
I guess they take shifts, or either that, or this list hasn't been updated in a while. I'm looking at the Tower of London website.
Or you just have to have a couple spare ravens on hand in case one dies and you can't get another one up.
And
there
that's that's always a concern. Well, with dogs, and in 2006 there was a lot of concern about the avian flu.
Right.
And so special shelters had to be constructed, and the birds had to be taken inside. And
if your raven population drops too low, I mean, what did you say? It was down to 1 during World War II?
It was down to 1.
If that's not a sign that the raven population is the sign of the times,
definitely.
Then I don't know.
They almost
what
didn't
is.
make it.
Yeah. Can you imagine if that last raven had died?
Hitler would have been victorious.
What the world would look like today.
Yeah, we'd all be speaking German.
Yeah. Amazing.
All because of that one raven.
Wow.
Their names are Bran, like Raven Bran.
Yeah.
Portia, Porsha.
Okay.
Not like the car.
Less of a raveny sort of name.
Portia Raven.
I can still.
Aaron Raven.
Aaron. Okay.
Merlina.
Merlina.
So like Merlin.
Right.
But with an A on the end and a female.
The female version.
Right.
Yeah.
Moonin.
Moonin.
Moonin. Munin.
Okay.
Who is the only Scottish raven, it would appear.
Yeah.
And also the oldest raven on this list, born in 1995.
Do they have an Irish raven?
No. Most of the ravens, in fact, nearly all of them, were born in Somerset.
Ireland is independent, though. Wait. I'm going to edit that out. I don't know.
No.
I know there are different, like, not immigration, but, like, the visa laws for Ireland are different for Americans than they are for the rest of Britain.
Yeah.
You can stay in Ireland for a year. It's one of the few countries we have a working visa, tourism visa arrangement with. New Zealand, Australia, Ireland, and there's one other I forget though. But are the only
Iran
countries you can automatically as an American get a year-long visa with, and you can work with that tourism visa.
Wow.
Most countries you get like 90 days or something, and you can't get
or
a
less.
job. Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. Side note: there's a great Irish comedy group on YouTube called Foil Arms and Hog.
I haven't heard of this.
You've probably seen some of their videos because some of them went viral on Facebook. But they have a great one that talks about Ireland and the different ways that it's divided up amongst the United Kingdom. And it talks about how the United Kingdom all plays together for like the Olympics. But in football and soccer, they play as individual countries. And in some sports, they play like the Republic of Ireland versus Northern Ireland. And it becomes a bit of a muddle.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I'll show it to you later. Anyway, where were we? We were on Moonin, who's the only Scottish. Merlina is from South Wales, by the way, in case you wanted to know.
Okay.
Hugine, I guess. Hugine. Hugine. Rocky Grip with 2 P's, and Jubilee.
Rocky Grip. That's a good one.
Rocky and Grip are 2 separate ones.
I see.
Sorry,
I thought
that was Rocky, Grip.
Right.
Yeah.
Rocky Grip. That's a good name though. That's like the kind of name you would want for like your action hero and like a kid's
Rocky Grip.
Rocky Grip.
It almost makes it sound like he doesn't have a good grip. which is not what you want.
Yeah,
in an
that's
action
not
hero.
really what you want. Yeah, no, you're right. Maybe
But
it's not so good.
it it could go either way.
Yeah. We can workshop it.
So yeah, those are the ravens, and there's a little footnote here that points out that Eugene and Erin are sisters. So there you go.
Wow, who knew?
But yeah, it's interesting that I stumbled across this because I actually I was hiking the other day, and we actually came upon a couple of ravens that were like circling the peak, and I didn't know anything about ravens previously, but I went with my brother-in-law, who's a falconer, who knows a lot about ravens, and I learned a lot about ravens. Do you know the differences between a raven and a crow? Other than that, they're different birds. Do you know how to like tell them apart?
No, how do you tell
A
them?
raven is much bigger
Yeah.
than a crow.
Okay.
They have like a bigger beak.
Yeah.
And they fly with their tail in like a wedge shape, sort of like pointed downward, whereas
Yeah.
crows never do that.
Crows don't do that. Interesting.
Also, a group of ravens is called, you've heard of a murder of crows?
Right.
A group of crows would be a murder. A group of ravens would be a conspiracy.
Makes sense. Yeah. Also, another difference is one is extensively written about by Edgar Allan Poe, and the other is not.
Right.
So,
The other has a folk band
yeah.
that uses their name.
I feel like I had another question, but I can't think
The
of it.
Edgar Allan Poe story does play a little bit of a role because it came out around 1845, which is like, so it would have been coming to prominence, literary prominence, around the same time that the tradition is believed to have emerged.
Yeah.
So it could be a factor in why it still exists and why it's gained the mythos that it has.
It's very interesting. Yeah, I didn't know about that. I wonder what other kind of government animals there are in the world. Like, you know, I don't know of any animals that the U.S. government keeps in some sort of like, what's the word? Like, I mean, obviously we have animals in our service for various things, but just that we keep around in some sort of.
Well, I guess you could think of Puxatawny Phil as a government maintained animal.
I mean, that's a municipal one, but
right. And then every Thanksgiving, our federal government pardons a turkey.
Yeah.
I don't know whether we keep the turkey or what becomes of the turkey after it's pardoned.
Turkey is I'm assuming they're not just grabbing a wild turkey out of, some state park somewhere. They're probably raising a specially trained turkey that gets White House clearance, and then they release it
background
somewhere.
check,
probably
drug tested.
The CIA probably just secretly kills it and then has it for turkey dinner.
That's what the Secret Service does on Thanksgiving. I'm gonna look that up now.
What happens to the?
Well, since the 1940s, presidents have been annually presented with a turkey in a ceremony. It was George H.W. Bush in 1989 who first pardoned the turkey.
Oh,
and since then, it's become a tradition to pardon the turkey. No president has ever not pardoned the turkey that he's been presented
we'll
with.
We'll see. We've got a very untraditional administration in there right now.
There's a great photo on the Wikipedia page. The caption reads, President Harry S. Truman receiving a non-pardoned Thanksgiving turkey. The giver is usually is members of the Poultry and Egg National Board and other representatives of the turkey industry. So there you go. They're actually private turkeys.
I wonder if it would be funny if George H.W. just pardoned this turkey on a lark, and then it turned into this whole thing, and now we have a turkey ranch somewhere.
Well, how can you
we've got to keep these turkeys alive. We can't kill them now that they've been pardoned.
How can you kill a turkey? Like, who's going to follow that act? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. You don't want to be the first president.
You don't want to be the first president to kill a turkey. What a PR nightmare.
Yeah. I'm telling you, man, Trump's going to kill this turkey. if anyone's going to do it.
Make America carnivore.
Oh man, that's a good one. Now I know about the
Ravens of the Tower of London.
The Tower of London.
I kind of want to dig into this topic more on my own after post-recording and see what I find, and maybe do a part 2 if I find anything more, because I'm not satisfied with what my research has put out there.
Well, if you learn more, you'll have to update us, or maybe eventually that's another segment we could have on the show. Mm-hmm. If we start uncovering small bits,
revisit some of our topics,
information about past topics, instead of doing a whole nother episode.
Yeah.
We could just,
and I think we've done corrections before.
Right. Yeah. Well,
and the mispronunciations.
We start going down that path,
we might never come out again.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
That's all the show's going to be.
Yeah. Man, I should have talked about the turkey pardon instead.
Yeah, I feel like that one's less obscure because people.
Well, it's less obscure because we're Americans,
right? But I think there's another sense of obscurity in that a lot of people know of it. They know it's a thing that happens, but they might not know information about why, the origins of it, or any of that.
This is interesting. So the 2013, 14, and 15 turkeys were sent to a place called Morven Park, which is in Leesburg, Virginia. Ah. It is a 1,000-acre historic estate and horse park.
Interesting.
So next time you're working in Leesburg...
Yeah, we'll have to stop by and see the turkeys.
The 2016 turkey is housed at Virginia Tech.
They're probably very honored to have that turkey.
What do you think they do with it?
I don't know. I'm assuming, they have some kind of... They want a turkey. Some people just have turkeys around. I knew these people growing up, they just had a turkey as a pet.
Are you sure it was a pet? And
I think they eventually ate it, but if you can have it wandering, I think if you can have it wandering around your yard for 2 years, why couldn't you do that until the turkey dies?
If you're eventually going to eat it, it doesn't really qualify as a pet. I mean, unless special circumstances like the apocalypse aside.
I mean, my point was more you could have it as a pet.
Right.
Just because they eventually ate it doesn't negate the fact that they had it, just around for 2 years. They didn't even have it in a pen. It was just in their yard. Right. And it just stuck around. So. Yeah.
Apparently the Virginia Tech mascot is a turkey. I don't really think of it as a turkey.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is a turkey, kind of.
I think it literally is a turkey. But it just doesn't... I don't think of it as a turkey.
Yeah.
And I don't see why anyone would want their football team to be the Turkeys. So I guess that's why they call them Hokies. But that's not much better.
Yeah. I've never thought about that, yeah. You're right.
It's a terrible idea.
They should go back to turkeys.
They should start over.
Go turkeys.
Apparently the modern turkey industry has roots in Virginia Tech.
The modern turkey industry?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess bulk.
There's a... Bulk. Well, it's one of the number one schools in the country for agriculture.
Right.
So,
I guess somebody has to raise all those turkeys we're eating on November 25th, or not. It's not on the 25th every year.
You can actually follow, if you want to look this up, you can follow on social media using the hashtag TurkeyPardon2016 to follow the turkey's journey.
Ah.
So if you want to,
yeah.
You could Google it right now and find out what happened to the turkeys. In 1922, Virginia Cooperative Extension Agent Charles Wampler sought advice from the head of the Department of Poultry Science, A.L. Dean. I guess that was at Virginia Tech. In the following years, Dean advised Wampler on turkey raising techniques. Wampler is regarded as the father of the modern turkey industry and founded the National Turkey Federation in 1940. The poultry industry makes $1 billion a year in the Commonwealth.
You can follow at Prez, that's Prez, Turkey, at Prez Turkey on Twitter. Mm-hmm. And that's the official feed of the National Thanksgiving Turkey presented at the White House. He hasn't tweeted since November 24th, 2016, though. So,
oh dear.
Very sad. Things are not looking good. Wow, he was white. Completely white turkey.
Are we still talking about Trump?
No, the turkey that was pardoned in.
Oh.
I've never seen such a white turkey.
I don't know if we need a random Wikipedia article
Yeah, we
after
kinda-
all that.
we
That was
kinda
kind of
gave-
like a sub.
Gave people some bonus there with the turkey.
How long of a tangent was that?
Not too long. I think we have enough time to do it. I could always cut it if it's not very good.
Do you want to?
Well, let's hit it. I'll see what we get, and then if it's not.
So this portion of the show is the random Wikipedia article segment.
This is a good one. I already hit the button.
You hit the button.
Yeah, it's
You skipped over
Rife.
all my
it's rife for
rife.
it's ripe for mispronunciation. Very good. So
Splendid.
yeah. Anyway, continue explaining.
I
what
was
this
I
is
was
all
gonna
about.
go through all the pomp and circumstance, but you
Right.
jumped the gun and pushed the
Yeah,
button.
sorry.
So now I don't know what life means anymore.
I mean, people still don't know what's going on unless they've listened to the show before, which they probably
Right.
have. Except maybe they haven't.
Maybe they haven't.
I don't know. Who
You
knows?
never know.
The funny thing is, we record these at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So far out ahead, but with the
Right, yeah.
idea, but knowing that the show basically has almost no one listening to it still.
Right.
But at any moment, by the time this episode gets out, it could have really blown up.
That's true.
We don't know.
Especially with our new marketing initiative.
Yeah.
So
Anyway,
what?
we've got a random Wikipedia article.
We push the button,
We just push the random button and
see what happens, and then we mispronounce things for 20 minutes.
we've got a page here called Ladislaus the Posthumous.
Do tell.
Ladislaus the Posthumous, posthumous, known also as Ladislaus, was the... What's the difference between Ladislaus? It's just an alternate spelling. It looks like Ladislaus and Ladislaus. Oh, he was the Duke of Austria, the King of Hungary, Croatia, and Bohemia, and was the posthumous son of Albert of Habsburg and Elizabeth of Luxembourg. Albert had bequeathed all his realms to his future son on his deathbed, but only the estates of Austria accepted his last will. Fearing an Ottoman invasion, the majority of the Hungarian lords and prelates offered the crown
A high-ranking member of the clergy.
to Vladislaus III of Poland. The Hussite noblemen and towns of Bohemia did not acknowledge the hereditary right of Albert's descendants to the throne, but did not elect a new king. It continues.
This is actually a fascinating individual. So he's called posthumous because his father died before he was born? Is that the idea?
He was the posthumous son of Albert of Habsburg. Albert had bequeathed all his realms to his future son on his deathbed. Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah.
But see, his name makes it sound like he's somehow posthumous. Like he existed
right.
after his own death,
Yeah.
which is a little weird.
But I guess he's just known as
The posthumous.
Maybe there's some
because-
kind of definition of posthumous that I'm unaware of. Obviously, it has something to do with after death, but maybe there's an additional.
Like the most common use is like when somebody wins an award posthumously. Like
Right.
Heath Ledger won the Best Actor Oscar.
And somebody could have a
posthumously.
son posthumously, but like it's odd that the son would then carry that name.
Yeah. Apparently, after his birth, his mother seized the crown, the Holy Crown of Hungary, and had her son crowned with it.
Oh, there was a definition I was not aware of. This is what came up. Posthumous is a 5-track EP from the American hardcore punk metalcore band The Banner. Originally recorded as the band's first and unnamed demo, it was handed out at the band's local shows to fans and attendees. As a result of the popular demo tape, the band won a contract with the local New Jersey punk specialist label Blackout! Records. The demo was then renamed Posthumous and was re-released as a CD EP. It was the
When was it
first
originally
of
released?
2 recordings the band released with Blackout. What was that?
When was this EP originally released?
It doesn't have any dates.
I just learned something that makes me very happy. The legislative body, the parliament of Hungary, was known as the Diet of Hungary.
Is that an English translation of whatever they were called, or was is that the Diet of Hungary?
There it is.
All right.
In black and white on the internet.
Originally, Parliamentum Publicum.
So that would be like the Latin name of it.
Hungarian. Yeah, there's a Hungarian word there that I wouldn't even try to pronounce, but
there you go.
What in the world? The Diet of Hungary.
The Diet met at least once every 3 years. There must be another meaning to the word diet too. That's just too much of a coincidence that the Hungarian parliament would be called Diet.
Yeah.
That both of those words would mean.
So they knew. Somebody knew when they came up with
this.
This
is like either like.
It's kind of like a conspiracy of ravens.
Yeah.
Like.
There was a conspiracy of ravens that came up with this.
There's a lot of this week Wikipedia article about Ladislaus the Posthumous is full of sort of, it's this story of kind of socio-political intrigue. You've got all these different people who are vying for the throne, and
it's kind of a Game of Thrones.
It is. It's literally what happens in, spoiler alert, for the first season of Game of Thrones. But that's literally what happens in the beginning of Game of Thrones. Like, the king dies, and the people of the kingdom, or people within the kingdom, refuse to accept who he appoints, and instead they kind of institute their own. But in this case, they don't elect a new king at all.
So what's interesting here is that the father, Albert, King Albert, was planning to launch a military expedition against the Ottomans at the time that he fell ill, leading unto his death. And when he hit his kingdom to his child, he had no way of knowing if it was going to be a boy or a girl. So he stipulated that it would only be left to his child if the child was a son. So if Ladislaus had been born Ladislasa,
right,
then
there's this other very odd bit to this, which is that the Hungarian lords and prelates, they refuse to accept the deceased king's last will, right? So they're not accepting the son as the rightful heir. And then they offered the crown to this guy from Poland named Vladislaus.
Right.
So they refused to give it to Ladislaus,
but they gave it to Vladislaus.
They try to give it to Vladislaus.
Right.
That name must be linked in some way to like some sort of royalty, or it must mean something, or just be a very common, or it's not the same name even though, but just like Vladislaus and Ladislaus. Yeah. Very coincidental. Very suspicious.
There's a lot of coincidences.
Very suspicious.
There must have been a lot of OK soda in the Diet of Hungary because there's so many coincidences.
Yeah, yeah.
It sounds like he did eventually come to power.
Well, there was a civil war kind of broke out before they had a chance to elect a new king. Or it's very sort of convoluted.
Yeah, the kingdom that Albert ruled over consisted of like 3 different countries. It was like Austria, Hungary, and Luxembourg, I think.
Yeah, we'll link to this article in. There's much more here than we could ever possibly cover.
This is a whole episode unto itself. Maybe even a 2-parter.
We'll link to the article in the show notes, or just Google Ladislaus the Posthumous. There's a nice, it kind of rolls off the tongue. There's a nice little ring to it. Ladislaus
it
the
could be
Posthumous.
a band name. Let's see if there's any like.
Well, I mean, it's at least the name of an EP, not the Ladislaus part. Blackout. Sorry.
See also Hofem Turchspiel.
This turkey is so white, man.
I don't see anything about like popular culture references to him. I feel like with a name like Ladislaus the Posthumous, that he would be referenced in.
I mean, seems like a pretty obscure dude, even though
he never
there's
married.
quite a bit known about him. Oh.
There was a marriage proposal set up, but he died by the time the contract was signed by his envoys in Paris. He was going to marry a woman named Magdalena, who was the daughter of Charles VII of France. There you go. I guess not living terribly long was sort of a thing in those days.
The related...
The 1400s?
The related section of Wikipedia links to...
A card game.
Hofamsterspiel, a court office game, was one of the earliest card games on record, preserved in its entirety with all 48 cards intact. It is a major 15th century medieval handmade deck commissioned by Ladislaus the Posthumous, King of Hungary and Bohemia and Duke of Austria from 1453 to 1457.
Wow.
It was among the great collection of art treasures.
He was only 17 when he died.
Oh, yeah, so he didn't... Well, he only ruled from 1453 to 1457.
What a life.
Hey,
I feel like this guy should be a movie.
He's got one of the earliest card games.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Wow. They have images of all these cards. We could do a whole episode on this guy.
They're really ornate. Yeah, this guy's an episode unto himself. You really clicked well this time.
The Wikipedia spirits blessed us.
And we almost didn't do it.
To think. That'll teach us to never not. Well, I think we did good work.
I think
today.
we did what we set out to do.
Good topic, Ben.
Thomas.
Yes.
If people want to know more about Blackout or anything else that we talked about today, how might they find that information?
Well, you can check out the show notes at obscurigami.com or in the description on your podcast player or on the YouTube player, or go on Wikipedia and search Blackout. I'm sure you can find more information about them there. Also, if you want to get in contact with us, maybe you've played Hohammerspiel yourself, or you have 6 ravens in your attic and you just want to tell us about them, you could send us an email, and the address for that would be info@obscurigami.com. I think that's all relevant.
I think that's the main thing. Subscribe is a good one.
Tell your friends.
Yeah.
Share the podcast.
I think we need to have like bumper stickers that say "Keep Obscurigami obscure."
That would be good. See, I like stickers. Would be a good thing to have, and maybe we could link that in with our contest or something like that. Because I'd love to have a good like Obscurigami.
Stay tuned for more developments.
Yeah. That could
temporary tattoos.
Yeah. Because, like, T-shirts, you do, like, a T-shirt or something, it's kind of pretentious. It's like, nobody's going to wear a T-shirt for your podcast. You've got to be, like, one of the top 10 podcasts for people to even want a T-shirt. But a sticker you could put anywhere. You don't even have to like the podcast. You'd be like, sure, I'll take a sticker.
I'll take a sticker, put it on my butt.
Yeah, you could use it to, like, you could cut the sticker up into strips and then use it as tape to seal, like, envelopes or something.
Yeah, or, like, leaking faucets. Or... Yeah. So many uses.